Hi students, today we will be talking about haircutting, chapter 16. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint presentation with you, so please follow along. Haircutting. Today we'll learn about reference points. We will talk about lines, sections, elevations. We'll learn how to design hairstyles with line. We'll talk about client consultation and key elements of that, the tools we use, how to use them correctly, things we can do also to ensure that we are maintaining proper body posture so that we are able to work in our industry long term. In this chapter, you'll also learn the 4 basic haircuts, the ways to section and cut the fringe or bang, texturizing techniques that we can perform with our shears, also ones we can perform with, say, a razor, also a texturizing shear. We'll talk about clipper cuts and how those are executed, and the use of trimmers. So, haircutting is a foundational skill that every cosmetologist needs to understand. It is about applying a plan, working systematically through a haircut. Also, we'll learn how to approach a haircut. And when we're face-to-face, I have very specific methodology which helps you to avoid getting lost in a haircut. You'll learn how to, first of all, diagram a haircut, draw the elevations, but also you'll write the order, where you start, where you move on to next. We have to understand the rules of haircutting. We have to understand our tools well, and we have to also understand and work on the techniques required for haircutting. Here we see the reference points. Our parietal ridge is not listed here for some reason. It is between the apex and the occipital bone. So we'll hopefully get another slide which will label the parietal ridge for us. Note the apex is the highest point on the head. So when we start haircutting, we will be using this reference point for sectioning, but also for elevating the hair in relationship to the apex or in relationship to the occipital bone. Here's the apex. Hopefully we'll see a slide that will show us the 4 corners. Here, these are pretty straightforward. The top, the front, sides. The crown is that area between the apex and the back of the parietal ridge. So we'll touch more on the parietal ridge coming up. The nape is at the very back of the neck, at the base. And then the bang or fringe area, the lady says it is from the apex forward to the 2 front corners. And you'll see more about the 2 front corners as we progress. Lines. We design with lines. We work with straight lines. We work with curved lines. And we work with vertical, horizontal, and then between vertical and horizontal diagonally. Here's some examples of straight lines. The bob here, it's showing a straight line, a 1-length haircut. We work also with vertical lines in the picture on the right upper, and we work with diagonal lines, pretty extreme example here of diagonal lines. Many different types of sectioning. Certainly when you're face-to-face with your instructor or myself, you'll see that We use different sections to execute different haircuts. Partings will travel around the head. We'll be working with guides that we create, and we'll be traveling with those guides. As we progress also, this will make a lot more sense. Elevation is the angle or degree at which we hold the hair away from the head. If we hold the hair straight out from where it grows, that would be an elevation of 90 degrees. If we do not elevate the hair at all, that is 0-degree elevation. Halfway in between 90 is a 45 degrees, slightly elevated. And then if we hold the hair way beyond 90 degrees, that's 180 degrees, and that is the highest elevation. Graduation is a term used to describe layers, but usually at a low elevation. So we'll be learning the graduated haircut where we hold the hair at roughly 45-degree angle. So a graduation is layers, but it's at a low elevation. Shrinkage is the hair contracting as it dries. So as we learn how to properly cut hair, we need to account for that in our haircuts. The cutting line is where your fingers are. So wherever you're holding your fingers, that will be your cutting line. There are times we cut below our fingers, times we cut above our fingers. A guide is something we create. A guide determines how long that section of hair will be cut. Sometimes those guides are stationary. We create them and we bring everything else from that section to that same guide. Other times we take that guide and we travel to other sections. Over direction is something we'll talk quite a bit about. It is any time that we're combing the hair away from its natural fall position. Over direction is used in most layered and graduated haircuts, and over direction makes for a length increase. For a consultation, today's tools are very readily available. Pinterest is a great tool. You can also create your own lookbook digitally. Rarely do we see a newspaper, or a magazine or something that a client has torn out. It would be through a digital means, typically Pinterest. It is very useful in the salon because it shows us quickly exactly what the client is looking for. So we need to know what they want. We need to know what kind of maintenance they are signing up for. We need to know if it fits their lifestyle. If it's a highly styled look and she's a soccer mom who has 5 minutes to style her hair in the morning, we need to clarify that for her, that maybe we need to pursue other options. We also want to kind of get a feel for the style they're looking for. Something cutting edge, something rather conservative and classical. As we design a hairstyle, we want to look at the client's face shape. Today, I encourage clients to wear whatever they want to wear, whether it fits into that mold of what's best for their face shape or not. We will find that there are clients who will discover they look better at certain looks, and they will just continue for years in variations of the same style. A lady recommends wrapping a towel around their face. It's not my recommendation. We don't need to make a client feel so looked at microscopically. I think we can take a quick assessment of their face shape, and for those clients who are looking for guidance and something that will best suit their face shape, we can make our recommendations from there. Hair analysis. These analysis factors are used in all hairstyling, hair cutting, chemical texture services. We want to look at what kind of growth patterns the client has. Do they have whorl in the crown? Do they have cowlicks along the hairline? We want to also look at the density of the hair, the number of hairs per square inch. How thick is the client's hair? We want to look at texture. This relates to the diameter of the individual strand. And then we look at the wave pattern. This is about visual movement in the hair strand. We'll talk more about use of hair cutting tools. We'll learn how to hold them, how best to preserve our posture, our hands, our wrists, our fingers, reduce strain. Here's a slide that shows us some of the tools that we'll be using for hair cutting. Our shears are our most expensive and most valuable tool we use in hair cutting. They are rated on hardness, and typically the most expensive and the best quality shears come from the country of Japan. They have worked with alloys for hardness, combinations of metals that produce the hardest and sharpest cutting edge. We'll learn more about the Rockwell hardness scale and the ideal amount of hardness we want. There are two types of manufacturing processes. We have cast shears. This is heated metal that is poured into a mold. These are more like your Office Max shears, your kitchen cutting shears. And then we have forged. These are heated, pounded metal. These are the quality that we want to work with in the salon. We will pause for a moment. Here you see the parts of our cutting shears with the cutting edge, a pivot, an adjustment knob. We do find that we have to adjust the tension of our shears occasionally, a finger tang, a ring finger hole, and the thumb hole. For maintenance, there is daily cleaning required. We also oil our shears so that they continue to work efficiently for us. Sometimes we need to adjust daily, other times not so much. We might find that they are appropriately adjusted for a couple weeks at a time. We will talk later about weekly cleaning, disinfecting, and a note on sharpening shears. Your shears are very sharp from the factory and actually would not require any sharpening for a couple years, and that is utilizing them every day, all day, for a couple years at a time. So I don't recommend you run out and have your shears sharpened anytime soon. There's a difference between left-handed shears and right-handed shears. A right-handed person cannot cut with the left-handed. It is because that they are offset in opposite directions. Purchasing shears. Milady recommends that you understand how they're manufactured, what kind of quality the steel is, how hard that steel is, what type of blade edge, and what's the best handle design. They do vary slightly, and and the fit. You want to make sure it's comfortable in your hand with the weight, etc. You'll be utilizing these shears very often. Hold the shears if you can. Communicate with the manufacturer and or distributor and see if you could borrow a lender pair so you can try them out. You'll be investing quite a lot of money I would want to have a good feel for the quality before I make that purchase. Also, look to see if there's a service agreement and warranty. High quality shears usually come with a lifetime warranty with some conditions. And one of those is that you never have them sharpened with anybody except for the manufacturer. Fitting the shear, we will have to show you how this is done with a video, or hopefully we'll be meeting face to face soon and we can demonstrate how this is done. This shows the proper holding of the shears. This is holding the shears and comb. A lot of new hair cutters don't realize that the comb and shear are held in the same hand, the dominant hand. Most of the time, we're only transferring our comb to our non-dominant hand when we're ready to cut. This illustrates how to hold a razor. The razor you see here is not actually one that you have in your kit. You will not have any questions on a test regarding how to hold the razor. It should be held comfortably for you. You will also not need to know the parts of a razor. Again, the razor we get in our kits is very different, much more modern. This here is a classic barber razor. Tension. When we're holding the hair out to cut it, we use tension. Sometimes we also use the comb, which can create tension. A note is that we typically use the wide teeth to section the hair. The fine teeth are used for hair cutting. So wide teeth for combing, parting, and then the fine teeth for the smaller detailed work. Tension here is the amount of pressure applied when you're holding the hair and combing that subsection. So the proper posture and body position is referring to the client in this position. You always want to make sure the client is sitting up straight and their legs are not crossed. The reason for that is we're looking to see that their shoulders are straight, and we do use those as a horizontal reference. For the cosmetologist, we want to make sure our weight is centered, knee slightly bent. For practical purposes, we want to make sure that we're maintaining our back in a comfortable position. Another thing that you will want to note is that you always want to stand in front of the section being cut. It's about maintaining a neutral position for you. Here are some of the hand positions I talked about before. Cutting over your fingers, below your fingers, and then with a low elevation, cutting palm to palm. Milady has lots of safety measures for every chapter, and haircutting is no exception. Make sure you're palming your shears, and I will illustrate that in a video. Never cut past your second knuckle. Always be careful around ears when you're cutting, and be careful when working with a razor. You'll see that our razor is a little different in that it has a guarded blade. This shows a blunt haircut. It is one that is not layered, it is not graduated, it is not elevated. It is all hanging down to one line. This is our graduated cut. This is the second in our haircuts, a total of 4. It is a gradual building up of weight by holding the hair low and by over-directing. I will also be illustrating that through a video, so you'll see how that haircut is done. layered cut. This is not necessarily the best example, but when it comes to the 90-degree haircut, which is also the layered haircut, it is your skateboard haircut. It is essentially cut at the same length throughout, so elevated at 90 degrees and cut porcupine style, as if we're creating a bubble. Here's the long layered haircut. It is cut straight out from the head through the top, and then everything else is over directed, elevated up to that same point to maintain length along the perimeter. Always make sure your partings are nice and clean. Your job is so much easier when you have clean partings. Create nice, clean sections. Tips around the crown and the neck area is be mindful of growth patterns. Around the ears, that is something that I'll have to illustrate. You just want to make sure that you are not cutting too high above the ears. Always maintain appropriate tension. It needs to be consistent. Make sure the client's head position is where you want it. We as cosmetologists get in the habit of manipulating, moving the client where we need them. And then we always want to cut with an even amount of moisture. As hair dries, it shrinks. So if we have variations in moisture content, it will make our haircut uneven.